So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the seventh session of the ICISA Trade Credit Insurance Week. Now, with more than 3,200 registrations, it's beat my expectations so far, and it's proving to be quite a success. My name is Richard Wolf, and I'm proud to be the Executive Director of ICISA. For all my faults, I've spent more than 3 decades in this industry as insurer and reinsurer, and to tell you the truth, I'm still learning and I'm still having fun. My hair just got a little bit longer, right? Now, it's my pleasure to introduce this next panel to you, entitled The State-of-the-Art Technology in the Insurance Industry, and specifically in the credit insurance industry. It was a topic referred to by one of our panel members yesterday, who said IT used to be one of the major barriers to entry for those companies wanting to join our industry. Now, we've invited 3 providers of technology who are not only helping to break down those barriers, but also to add new technology to our industry at the service of the clients we all serve to make the product. We make the product easier to use, more cost-effective, provide better tailored solution, and to take advantage of the technology in the world around us, such as distributed ledger technology, such as artificial intelligence and quantum technology, to name but a few. So we can move at the speed that the market is moving around us. And frankly, as it was mentioned this morning in the talent panel, it just makes our industry that little bit more sexy. Technology has evolved from something that serves the underwriter only. Customers, brokers, bankers, and indeed regulators and authority are also served in a way that was unimaginable just 10 years ago. That are things that we hope to convey to you. If you have questions, please put them in the tab on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. But let's now go around the table and ask our panel members to introduce themselves, their companies, and their unique selling proposition. Robert, if you'd like to take lead, please, on this one.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction, Richard, and I'm really honored to join this panel today, which is a really distinguished one. My name is Robert Metis. I'm head of global business at Schumann and director of Schumann International Limited in London. Schumann is around in the market 25 years now, and we are about 200 people. And we are very much connected in the global organizations that is referring to the credit risk management side, and also, for example, representing our company in the InsurTech group within the ITFA. If you allow me to thank you very much to all the attendees of the Schumann conference on the 27th of September. And I know that there were some of you attending this session today. And so that was really good that you could have a chance to see what our customers are referring to regarding the topics that is on the agenda in the world today. Maybe some words regarding our company. We are based in Europe, headquarters in Germany, but also in London. We have been in the market for a long time, and in fact, we've implemented our first software solution at a trade credit insurance company, in fact, and now with a high market share in trade credit insurance and surety bond business. Well, in addition, we are also providing credit risk management solutions to corporates, banks, and financial institutions, and provide that solutions in the space of credit insurance to support the commercial and buyer underwriting, as well as end-to-end solutions in the surety bond business. Well, we come back later what it all means to implement such solutions and what you are benefiting from with all the experts in this panel. We are very much connected within the credit insurance world with the API platform with 15 partners in the world. And we are very much specialized in the field of data science. So the benefit of our customers is increasing efficiency and scaling the business. That's what it's all about, what our customers want to achieve.
Thank you so much, Robert. And Todd, if you would like to carry the can forward, please.
Great. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Jerome and Robert, for joining me, as well as the, hopefully a lot of those 3,200 participants or registrants that you had across this week. My name is Todd Linnity. I am the Managing Director and Global Head of Insurance at LiquidX. And really briefly, LiquidX was founded in 2016 by our current CEO, Jim Toffey, and Broadridge Financial Services. They are an investment-grade rated fintech, which specializes in the optimization of business process for global financial institutions. And LiquidX is basically the Broadridge's trade finance arm, where we come in, optimize these same processes for the entire trade finance and working capital value chain, right? All constituents, be it corporates, financial institutions, carriers, and brokers. Personally, I have over 25 years experience in trade credit insurance as a broker, as an underwriter, and a user. As a user, I was at GE Capital and Textron Financial, but the majority of my career, I would say about 23 years now, was with the trades Zurich and Allianz in a lot of different roles: a sales agent, commercial underwriter, risk underwriter. And I was fortunate to launch 2 XOL businesses with my friend and mentor, the late John Palou. And one of the unique value propositions that I see that LiquidX brings to the table is that we bring together all the constituents of the trade finance and working capital trade flow into one interconnected ecosystem. And regardless if it's an insured party on the bank or corporate side, an insurance carrier, or a broker, everyone can interact on that same platform and on that ecosystem. And with that being said, while we do have a wing-to-wing offering, our offering is very modular and plug and play. So we could really complement existing proprietary system or other third-party systems. And we don't really take a position where it's all or nothing or one and done. We really like to work with our clients doing a gap analysis of what they have, what they're lacking, and come up with a solution with them while leveraging as much of their existing technology as possibly that they have. And then, last but not least, I would say that, one of our unique value props is the fact that we view that interconnectivity and interoperability as core tenets of our offering. Globally, we're headquartered in the U.S., have offices in the U.S., New York headquarter, Boston's our tech office, have an office in London, office in Prague, and an office in Singapore and APAC. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Todd. And last but by no means least, Jerome, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, Richard, and thank you very much, and congratulations for this very successful event. And I'm glad to participate with the other members of the panel. Just briefly, myself, after decades in the credit insurance industry as an underwriter, where actually I joined a credit insurer which was only in France when I joined it, operating only in France, and developed to become the world leader in the credit insurance. I left the management board in Paris at Euler Hermes to move to set up Tinable Square 21 years ago, with a vision that the industry needed a technology company really that could provide the ERP of the industry, and indeed reduce the barrier to the market and able to improve the operation of the insurance. We started immediately as a full web and ASP, which is now the SaaS model, and we moved then easily to cloud. Tinable Square, it's 180 staff today. It's revenues of 30 million euros. It's 25% consistently of investment in technology per year, so it's beyond 7 million euros investment. We have more than 50 underwriters as clients in the credit insurance and surety business. We cover the full scope of short-term, medium-term PI, surety players, brokers, and agents. And we still have the same vision, which is to enable the credit insurance and surety business players to digitalize their organization to better serve their clients and benefit from the fast evolving technology. And I might elaborate on that later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction, gentlemen. But let's go straight into the beef, shall we? And one of the questions I hear my members talking about is what the most challenging aspect around trade credit insurance is from an IT point of view, and how can software help? And Robert, I'm sure that you would be able to answer that question quite comprehensively.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard. So what we see is, we are now in a world of uncertainty, and there are challenging aspects surrounding trade credit insurance. However, besides the challenges, what we see, there are also opportunities coming from digitalization, and that's why we are talking about that topic here. So when we are looking into the insurance space, we see the challenges for the trade credit insurers, and this is one side. The other side is, of course, the surety business, and also the multilateral agencies and public sector bodies, ECA. When we are looking into the targets, what they want to support, managing exposures and manage capital and returns, as well as facilitate global trade and investments. In these times, it's really challenging for them. However, they have done well so far, and for good reasons. We will come back to that later on. But maybe to take only most important bullet points, what I see at the moment in the current economic situation, while we are talking about inflation and increasing energy prices, they are high, they are increasing. We have never seen that since the Second World War in the last century on that level. So it is combined with anything that's related to supply chain disruptions and current shortages in supplies. And we are in the post-corona time, and these are effects coming from that. And in addition, we would have to see that there are geopolitical confrontations that has also an impact on the supply chain. So we have never seen such a big impact coming from the political risk side of the business for trade credit insurers and reinsurance business for a long, long time. However, the situation for the companies at the moment is that fortunately the insolvencies are low. That is very much coming from the governmental support that we've seen in the corona crisis. However, the expectations, of course, are that we will see increases. How significant these increases will be, maybe we will elaborate that, and the other fellow speakers will refer to that. So what does it mean regarding the capacity available to handle all this for the insurance market? Well, it is very important to see how the reinsurers position themselves, and within the renewal negotiations with the insurance companies, which capacity would be available for that. To bring it to one point, for the time being, it seems that a capacity is available, but the capacity has to be allocated in a proper way. I see two topics here in terms of capacity allocation. It's about the world regions to give enough capacity for them. On the one hand, on the other hand, the industry sectors to support. And of course, the trade credit insurers have been a great supporter of the economies. And of course, trade credit insurers in that kind of uncertainty need to allocate the capacity properly. Coming back to one aspect here and to bridge to the topic what the vendors of software solutions could bring in. So having said that, that the uncertainty and the changes in the economic environment lead to a needed support to respond as a trade credit insurer to all the environmental changes. So on the one hand, you need to have experts who understand the business to see what's going on, but also to utilize software solutions that are really on a high level and very distinguished to support your business. But it is necessary that these solutions provide self-services so that you would be able to react and to adapt the system to the environmental changes, for example, in terms of risk for certain industries, maybe to amend the system parameter-driven, depending on the risk appetite and how you're allocating the capacity in view of the challenges in the market. I'm sure that we will elaborate that a little bit later on, but I would like to hand over to my colleagues now.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Robert. And I heard you talk about a very uncertain, very dynamic situation with lots of unknowns. And what I think I heard you say is that the market, or that we need flexibility on parts of systems to adapt to that. Now, Jerome, is that something you can agree with?
Yes, I would say that the first, living, it's part of the DNA of credit insurer to live in an uncertain environment and to be in a cyclical industry, and the ability to anticipate, to react in a world of uncertainty is fully the DNA of a credit insurer. We should not forget that, which means that even if the level of uncertainty is higher today, it's part of the business of a credit insurer. We are used to that. And I remember when I was in charge of the risk for the Euler Group, international risk for Euler Group in 1997. I mean, it was a time of high uncertainty with the collapse of economies across Asia, and you had to react to that. So it's part of our DNA. Now, what is specific to credit insurers is the volume and quality of data which insurers have to collect, the complexity of variety and of business processes per product, per geography, the ability to automate the business processes with creating business intelligence, which is essential for credit insurers. The fact that credit insurers have to change in terms of management organization in an industry of experts, which is a difficulty because we have business experts in all the underwriters. And there is a need as well, which is an additional challenges emerging strongly presently, of increased integration with an extended ecosystem. So how the software can help? Clearly providing solution to process, to automate, efficiency gains with seamless code process for submission to policy, internal user experience, one-stop shop of all functional domains, automated limit management, all of those stuff. Product development and time to market is also something where technology can help. Enhance governance to enable indeed the company to better control and the reinsurer to have better transparency. Clearly, technology can help. The quality of data, the data consistency, the data checks, all those are fields where technology can help. ability to collect information, to design dictionary of data, to map the resources, to provide decision support, so statistical algorithm, risk strategy, AI now, quantum technology in the future, engine and rules to process alerts for credit insurance to be more agile, to be more reactive, to anticipate better. So clearly on those fields, technology can provide strong benefits and increase the customer, the policyholder experience, which is absolutely paramount.
So if I summarize that, the system has to do for a credit insurer just about everything except for baking a cake and skipping rope. Is that correct? And
Yeah.
that's probably the theory of it, right? But let's look at the practice for a moment, because there is nothing as good to show how the practice is as to share a couple of success stories. And Todd, I would be very interested. What was your most successful implementation to date, and what made that project so successful? As a mirror image, at the same time, we will ask the audience, what are the most important aspects that you look for in a third-party provider? So let's put the two answers together at the end. And Todd, I look forward to hearing from you on successful implementations.
Great. Thank you, Richard. I want to highlight two, actually. One was for an insurance broker, and the other was for a large financial institution with a very vast and geographically spread insurance portfolio. And for both of these particular instances, I think the answer is very simple. We worked on these engagements with our clients as partners. And really what it comes down to is working hand in hand with them to really understand their workflows, their processes, and then really make sure that we're providing them with a solution, not only gives them that digital transformation and that transformation of their operations. That's incredibly important, obviously, but more importantly, to make sure that we're working with every level of the organization to receive the buy-in from the day-to-day users, right? So having that incentive alignment, not just with the IT team, not with just the senior management team, but also the users of the system, right? To have that alignment from the outset is incredibly important, right? So, I think that they're the main aspects of a successful implementation, but I also want to bring up one last thing, which I think is most important. I think we have to keep an open mind, right, as a provider, because all of us have a tremendous amount of experience in this business, individually and collectively. And regardless of your level of experience, regardless of your level of expertise, you have to be open to learn something new. And even with my experience, I learn something new every day. And going into an engagement thinking that you have all the answers, that you're going to tell them what they need or tell them what to do, I don't think that that's actually a good recipe for a successful outcome. You really have to step back, listen to the client, do the gap analysis, understand their needs, because really at the end of the day, it is about them and not about what you think you have or the limitations of your offering. So being flexible, open-minded, and getting that buy-in, I think, is the most important aspect of a successful implementation.
Thanks, Jerome. Would you mirror that? Could you maybe describe what made your most successful project so successful?
Yeah, probably the first most successful project we managed was with QBE. It was more than now. It was 10 years ago, and that was really at the time when QBE wanted to evolve, to increase the benefit to the clients, customers, and brokers, to build a practice within common processes across the world, within 18 countries. And that was the first significant success internationally, implementing our solution across a number of countries. And it was feasible because we didn't have only methodology and business expertise and knowledge of the credit insurance, but within the client, there was a quality of team, There was a real project management and governance. There was a clear and shared objective within the organization. There was an availability and participation of key experience resources within the client organization. And jointly, we shared the willingness to succeed. And a strong communication and transparency between the team, our team, and the QBE team. Probably based on this success, the next major success we had was probably with AIG, where we had to move one step further in terms of size of the implementation, with more than 500,000 buyers, with more than 15,000 insured. So it was more than 1,000 brokers and agents to communicate with. So that's where also a big project with a transformation of the organization, rethinking the processes, rethinking the organization. So the same built on business expertise, methodology, and very strong communication and common vision with the client.
Well, and the audience tends to agree with you, gentlemen, because what the most important aspects you look for in a third-party tech provider are flexibility in adapting to my specific needs, listening skills, and I think Todd highlighted that very, very clearly, and highlighted by Jerome, a solid understanding of my business. So we are still not the standard office where you roll in Microsoft Office and live in happily ever after.
Absolutely.
That gives a lot of hope for the future, I would say. So if we go to a next one, and Todd, starting with you again, how can you manage and make the best use of the people in the insurance company who are vital to the project? We all know that when we do a large automation project, it comes down to a very small number of very important people. How do you handle that?
That's a very good question, because while it does come down to a very small number of very important people, there's a very large number of a lot of different diverse people that are usually in the project team and part of the decision-making process. So, my response to this is there really needs to be a high level of cross-functional engagement, and it kind of goes hand in hand to what I said previously. That cross-functional engagement, you need to have the business owner obviously on board. You need to have the internal IT teams, the procurement teams, the management team, but also those day-to-day users, right? And, the provider, like the third party, the Schulmans, the Chinubus, the Liquid X's of the world, going back to really fully understanding the needs of the client's workflow and their processes, right? Because none of that could be assumed, and even at the management level, right? Like the reason why I feel it's really important to get the day-to-day users involved, because I've been through at my old companies 3 digital transformations where it was top-down discussed, and it didn't really go all that well or all that smoothly, because no one asked the day-to-day underwriter or the account manager, commercial or risk, whatever department they sat in, what they needed, right? So there's a lot of assumptions being made, but no one really asked the people that mattered what they need, how this was going to affect them, and how is this going to actually help them in their day-to-day. So to summarize, be open-minded, open to feedback, be flexible. That ensures the best user experience as possible, and ensure that in addition just to management, get those day-to-day users of your system on board with the processes and workflows that help their day, not necessarily what the IT team or the higher levels of the organization think that they need at a system level.
Yeah, that's very, very clear. And Robert, does that match your experience? and how does your rollout, whether you use agile or waterfall, play into this?
That's a good question. So what I see first and foremost, a commitment from top management on top management level is really important, and the people who are very much involved in projects and in handling as a key user that kind of software components, we see that well, the best ones are required the most. So it's a small group of people who are requested every time, and they have a conflict with their day-to-day business. So what we are seeing is that a clear governance and project management method is really important, and that the vendor should be part of the team. So it's very important to set up teams so that they have the same spirit bringing things forward. And of course, it needs to be fitted into the strategy, and there needs to be a clear communication between the insurer and the vendor, and within the project teams and within the governance team. So coming to the point, what you mentioned in terms of the methods handling, for example, certain requirements to implement. So the starting point of everything is experience, the knowledge of the vendor, and the capabilities of the software solution itself. So handling everything that's related to a project, and then after a go live, there are various tasks. The first one is within the project to set up something new. There are some clear requirements that you could handle in a classical waterfall way of doing things. And when it's more on the innovation side, which has a competitive edge here, then agile methods are really appropriate. Well, the task here is time to market, to be fast and not to take too long to implement 100% solution, which could be very, very comprehensive and too complex, rather than to move on stepwise. And we've made great experiences here. I just want to mention another point. Cooperating with insurance company, that's regulation. There are always coming in new regulatory requirements, and of course it needs to be monitored constantly, and there needs to be a clear common understanding to embed that in update and upgrade processes to have that right, and it needs to be handled in a proper way. So that means, so you're adapting your system to any requirements coming from the regulators, then it needs to be tested and it needs to be updated, and then the rollout. This needs to go hand in hand, and it very much depends how the implementation happen, whether it's on premise, whether it's a SaaS solution. To finalize that point, it needs a clear communication and coordination of work, and that helps to get best out of the people, because everybody knows exactly what to do in the best case, and to coordinate that. But governance of the project team and all the tasks is really important, and do that really hand in hand. That is key.
Thank you very much. And if we look at what the audience tells us, by far the most important thing to have as a key driver of a digitization project is the commitment of top management. And I can echo that, having been in front of my top management about 10 years ago, defending that I not only wanted, but I needed a new system. And that top management at the time said, yes, please, go ahead. It also said something else, and that's the topic of my next question. It said, Richard, you've pretty much convinced us that we need to buy a new system, but can you tell us exactly how you are going to, together with your vendor, manage resources, time, and budget most effectively? Because if there's one thing we hate, it's big IT projects going over time, over budget, and not delivering what you should be delivering. Now, if you put yourself in my shoes, what would you answer to my top management at the time, Jerome?
I think by the way, we mentioned the agile method, just to mention that. Basically, it's to make it very simple and understandable by top management. It's just you start with a fixed budget and time, and you consider that those elements are never unlimited. Then you will have to negotiate and make choices regarding the scope. You never sacrifice quality. You try to, within that constraint, to maximize the business value delivered, then within a fixed budget and time. That requires a very strong collaborative approach between the vendor and the company. But that requires within the company clearly to have people who are empowered to take decisions, and with a strong then organization in project management, with the ability to manage work priorities based on the business value of the features to deliver, which means that there should be a good exchange between the business experts and the vendor and the company. There is a need, and the management has to understand that very well, a need of team stability, because that's the only way to increase the team velocity. Agility requires velocity. So this very strong dimension, which is to have a collaborative approach, to be capable to make decision and arbitrage, to get people empowered, to very well define the resources that are available to them, and to have a clear agreement between the parties on the roadmap are absolutely paramount. If all those elements are clearly well stated and well agreed, then you have clearly the control over the project. And periodically, you update your position versus your ambition. But you have to make the arbitrage and the decision.
Todd, I see you nodding. So you presumably agree. And if you are to pick out two of the most important aspects of this, which ones would you pick?
So I liked the way Jerome mentioned and commented on the scope of the project versus the budget, right? Because I think in a industry colleague recently shared something, MVP versus MPP, minimum viable product versus maximum possible product. And a lot of times people want MVP pricing but want MPP delivery, right? So I do think that nailing down that scope is the most important part, right? And even if the initial scope, so it's like, okay, what is your desired state? Okay, let's nail down that scope. Let's price it out. And also understanding the edge cases that are involved. Not that you're going to be able to address every edge case, but it's important to get out of it. Like, I think to identify them up front, get ahead of them. Because they usually, unfortunately, a lot of edge cases don't get thought of until like UAT testing. And then it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we need this to work. But then you're basically trying to unbundle and unpack a great deal of work for that one or two edge cases that everyone knew about, but they really never just brought it up. So, the scope, I think you identify what's needed, look at all the process, workflows, edge cases, right? Size and scope and price what's needed. Work with the organization and say, okay, here's the different items that we talked about. Here's the different scopes. Here's the different pricing. We know that your budget is X. This comes to Y. Now let's prioritize what's really needed. And then we could start here and build on from there. And
Here. Robert, do you agree? And do you have something to add, please?
Yes, I think my colleagues expressed what the natural conflict is, timing, budget, and the scope. It needs to be balanced, and that is something that is really challenging. What I described before a little bit is that we see in terms of scope that there are different types of requirements. So there are requirements that are must-have somehow, and the other ones maybe are optional or nice to have, so to categorize somehow what we are talking about in terms of scope. And you are absolutely right, Todd. MVP and that the character of MVP needs to be clearly communicated. Because otherwise it will be overloaded again while you're trying to implement something on an MVP level that it's becoming too comprehensive. So it's a question of discipline as well. But regarding the requirements in terms of scope, it needs to be distinguished. I give you an example. So if you're implementing something that is more basic, then it's much easier to find out what is MVP level and what could be extended. If there is something incoming under time pressure, for example, coming from the regulators, it needs to be implemented in a proper way. More or less clearly defined what should be in, and then you have a different priority regarding the scope and the timing. And maybe the costs are not not on the highest priority, because you have to do that as an insurance company when you're talking about innovation. So the more agile project style allows that you have a certain budget and move on in that kind of implementation stepwise to not to overload that idea and have the time to market aspect in view. So you could play a little bit with that depending on the character of the requirements and the implementation, whether you have a higher priority of costs, higher priority of the time to market, or higher priority to have a certain scope which is on a must-have level to implement.
Thank you so much. And I think that's quite complete. I have one last question for you, and I have one last question for the audience. Now, don't forget to put in your questions in the question box, so you can ask the really difficult stuff to these three experts. Don't let this opportunity pass you by, right? Now, my last question is given in by the fact that I've lived through 3 system implementations, and I've got the scars on my back to prove it. The first implementation was the name of the company with the year 2000, and that project was eventually it went live in 2002, over time, over budget, and on a mainframe system. Now, you wouldn't dream of doing something like that now because of the dynamic environment we live in. So how can we keep the system in 2022 current and prevent it from becoming obsolete within a couple of years? Todd, what would you recommend?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. So I think basically, when you're working together with your customers and growing with them, understanding those problems that you're solving for, you have to continually improve on your system and build those features to continually evolve with each use case that you have, regardless if it's a carrier, if it's a broker, or an insured party. I don't think it should be, nothing should be a one and done, right? It's a process of continuous improvement. So the system not only, grows with the customer base, but also, addresses some of the new needs and some of the new elements and a lot of the new challenges that the future may hold. And, you also experimentation is also important to launch new features. You have some clients that, were with you from the beginning, and have them as like beta testers and do some proof of concepts with them. So you're just always thinking about not what I could sell today, not what I could sell, let's say, in the immediate future, but where is this market going in the next 5 years, 7 years, and 10 years? So you're always thinking ahead of the curve. That's my take on it.
Makes a lot of sense. And what do you think, Robert? How do you keep a system current?
To invest in people and their knowledge, to invest into understanding the customer needs and all the related stakeholders, from the broker to the insured and the insurer, to invest into standard software components and take into account, when you're dealing with various customers in the same industry, to understand what should be state of the art, to allow other participants to benefit from efficient software. However, also taking into account that in the technological world, things are developing. Anything in the context of cybersecurity, our customers expect that we have state-of-the-art technology in place. That's clear. You cannot ask the customer to give an idea what we would have to look at. We have to look at what is really needed to keep the system state-of-the-art. So it's all about investments, and in data science, we had this topic at the very beginning. So data is key. Data is really key, and embedded, of course, in a state-of-the-art system, but data is key. And to invest into data science. Of course, there are traditional and classical analytic tools, but investing into what's going on in the world of AI, machine learning, etc., it's really promising. And I can tell you what we've experienced in investing into researches, for example, to get more out of payment experience that you have all in your database, and use that for a default risk evaluation and monitoring, as well as liquidity forecast, which is so important in this context. So it's all about investment, and then cooperation with the insurer to bring in that idea, to understand what they want to achieve, and then to do that in a collaboration.
Thank you. Jerome?
Yes, just one question. I think one of the difficulty is the fact that you have to be in parallel incremental, but also to be disruptive. Technology is also a word of disruption, and you have, in that perspective, to make the right choice in terms of technology. Today, clearly, and look at that, what happens in the metaverse, for example, is the word of interoperability, which means that you have to take the decision which enable you to then have more a service-oriented architecture, which is indeed what a SaaS solution provides. So which means that you have to take the right choice in that perspective. And indeed, as it was previously said, you need to get this strong relationship with your client. For example, we have a process, and you know that, Richard, which is the fact that we built a roadmap, but we have a customer advisory board where for a few days a year, we have all our key clients discussing, exchanging about the roadmap. They have to have the ownership of the evolution of your technology. And yourself, as Robert mentioned, you feed them with new potential proof of concept, new technology that could enable to provide benefits, maybe in 2 years, 3 years, or even 10 years, like, for example, quantum computing and things like this. But you have to be capable of making the right technology choice, to be disruptive and incremental, and listening to your client.
You've got an impressive job in front of you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Now, we have a number of questions from the audience, and I'm very happy at that. Christian asks, what's the most important aspect of technological innovation in the view of the policyholders? Now, who'd like to take a first stab at that one?
I can. So, I think one of the biggest challenges, I think, in trade credit insurance overall, regardless of the amount of some of the digital transformations that we've seen at the carrier level in particular, is that the majority of our business and of our industry still relies on incredibly manual and resource heavy processes, especially as it relates to day-to-day policy management and compliance, right? So if you think of, why do companies buy insurance policies? We all know that there's the 3 or 4 different reasons, but it's an insurance policy. And at the end of the day, they would like to get a claim paid. So when you look at claim denials, when I was at Zurich and when I was at Allianz, I actually had authority to offer commercial gestures for claim denials up to a certain level. And I would say that anywhere between 80 to 85% of those claims that denied that passed my desk for one of those gestures were all due to human error. Past due reporting threshold breached, claim filing threshold breached, the invoices didn't attach during the policy period, either at the front end or the back end, right? Technology, there's technologies that we have, there's technologies out there that could solve those problems. The question is, why aren't the insured parties or the other representatives of the clients utilizing those technologies?
Anything to add, Jerome?
Yeah, maybe 5 keywords or 5 key elements. It's transparency. Second, it's seamless process. Third, it's never transfer cost inefficiency to your client. Fourth, it's define and design a product that fits the real needs and evolving needs of the policyholder. And 5, it's to provide the policyholder with intelligence and knowledge. If you achieve these 5 key elements, you really provide an enhanced customer experience.
Yeah, I could completely confirm what was said, and maybe only one idea. The access to the process is important. So it's about connectivity, or maybe to get access to a process via portal technology or something. So the connectivity and efficient process steering, and also transparency, as Jerome mentioned, is really important to increase customer experience. But again, all the other aspects are really important to answer that question properly.
And very closely to this, Lara asks, most software has very static and unflexible functionalities. How are you making sure that one software fits all? I think, Robert, you started to answer that question. Do you want to carry it on?
Yeah, maybe I could pick up this point, because what we see is that in the close collaboration with the customer, the expectation is that a system needs to be flexible in a way that you could adapt this system to certain requirements coming in. Just taking an example, if you want to change risk appetite for a certain industry sector, it needs to be the people, the insurer needs to be empowered and enabled to amend the system accordingly. Of course, it runs through all the steps of quality ensured process management here. However, the capability of the system needs to be in place. We are talking about workflow steering. If there is a workflow management system available that allows automated processes or IT-supported approval process, then it should be, for example, parameter-driven, and all the calculations and everything should be available to amend or to be changed. And then the decision engine itself, taking values into account, and the formulas and calculations and all this stuff. So to align that with the policy of the insurer, how to deal with the for example, default risks and risk appetite. So there are so many aspects that the capability of the system should be a flexible one, but the people needs to be enabled and trained and empowered. We have the topic empowerment of project management, but it's also project management members, but also the empowerment to maintain the system is also something which is very important in this context. So capability of the software, and also empowerment and enable the people using the system.
Gentlemen, we've got 1 minute left and one question left, and I'm going to ask you something really difficult. I'm going to ask the question, and I would like you to respond in no more than 5 words. So the question that Matthias asks is, how do you find the right balance between being flexible and adapting your system for the diversity of organizational needs, and the capability to manage tools in an efficient and effective way? 5 words, Todd.
Oh boy, there's 2. Partnership opportunities to effectively develop new workflows. Don't try to build everything from scratch. Be open.
That's a good one. Jerome?
Build your software based on the best practices of the industry and the vast experience of how different insurers operate, but also being capable to explain to the client that what the objective is, the business value and achieving the business objective, not necessarily the way it is done, enabling him to rethink about some of the processes and advising him on that.
Thank you. Robert?
State-of-the-art processes require experience from the vendor and an overview what's going on. Innovation, and a customer should be challenged somehow. And please, the insurance community, please be open to be challenged also by the vendor, not only from the environment, what the market needs. So it's both. It's a stabilizing processes, that's key to achieve the targets, but on the other hand, to be challenged what's going on in the IT world, and you could benefit in the long run from it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for an enlightening panel, for an enlightening discussion. I hope you've given food for thought to the people listening in. We've reached time, and I think we could fill another 3 days on this topic. But tomorrow is a different day, and tomorrow morning we will return with you with our last day of the Trade Credit Insurance Week, and we have a real treat for you. At 10 a.m., we'll be putting on what role can trade credit insurance play in building a more sustainable future. We will put that question to Mrs. Petra Hilkema, who is the chair of EIOPA. And EIOPA, as you probably know, is the EU regulator for insurance and pension funds. And I'm sure she's got some very fixed ideas on this. She'll be followed by Mr. Danilo Chiono, I hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly, of RepRisk, world's largest ESG technology company specializing in data science. This one is not at 10 a.m. It is at 11 a.m. So that is different from all the other morning sessions, but well worth waiting the extra hour for. I would advise you to tune in. I would advise you to listen well, and to take in the information that especially Mrs. Hilkema is going to give to us. With that, I thank you very much. I thank the panelists again. I thank you as an audience very much for your active participation, for your questions, for your answers to the polls, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.